Wait, Joe's camera's not.
All right, it's Monday night, and we welcome all our awesome fans to our Fight Card Entertainment YouTube page for another special edition of Fight Card Entertainment Sports as we come to a close on what was probably and possibly, I'm going to just go ahead and say because me and Terry are going to agree, the greatest documentary of all time, along with
Oh,
Ric Flair's. I got to
man.
say that.
The greatest documentary on the greatest team.
The Last Dance, and it's our last Monday night. I'm
Oh
Showtime
man.
Joe Rossi, your Fight Cut Entertainment MMA ring announcer, reporter, and host, with my partner in crime, as I just referred him to before we went on the air. And there's only one partner in crime I would want to have on this Bulls documentary, Terry House in
Oh,
Indiana.
it's a beautiful Monday. I got my favorite cup. I'm getting ready
Oh
to talk
boy,
my
oh
ready
boy.
to talk my
Oh boy, we're gonna be talking that, but let's just hope
it's a
all our
beautiful
fans.
time.
Terry, yeah, I hope you're not somewhat dry up there in Indiana. Any fans experiencing some horrible issues with this rain, hang in there, stay tough, man. It just seems like the
Yeah.
Terry's mug keeps piling on. The shit, right? I mean, with everything going
Oh
on
man. Oh, it's a
we're
beautiful time.
experiencing some. Sorry, we're on a little bit late than normal. I was having some technical problems. Terry at the end there had one or two little things going on. So of course we had to say it had to happen in the last episode. But we're happy to be here. Terry, let's get right into it, man. Let's
Let's
start.
get
I want
started.
to start this whole thing on what Michael Jordan said. Besides the Detroit Pistons, was their toughest quest to get to an NBA title, and that was Reggie Miller and the Indiana Pacers. Now, I would say I'd have to agree with the GOAT on that one. I didn't see anybody as physical as the Pacers compared to the Pistons, man, up until that point for the Bulls.
Oh man, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about how they were going to end the finale, and I told you the one thing they were going to highlight was that rivalry with the Pacers, man. I remembered it like it happened 5 minutes ago, man. They were tough, they were gritty, they were solid at every single position, man. The Davis brothers, they had Travis Best, they had a young Jalen Rose fresh out of college. I mean, he had Reggie Miller, arguably one of the greatest shooters to ever touch the basketball. I mean, Rick Smith. I mean, that was as a complete team as it gets. They were probably more complete than the Utah Jazz that year. You know what I mean? And I just knew they were going to show that. A lot of people don't remember how tough that rivalry was between the Bulls and the Pacers, man. And like I said, I had a vivid memory of how that rivalry was, man. And it was just awesome to just relive it, man. It was wonderful.
Absolutely. I mean, it got to the point where the situation got very real as far as the Bears. Sorry, I'm thinking Bears because Michael McCaskey just passed away, the
Yeah,
former president. So
right.
I was just reading up on that again. But it got real for the Bulls, where they were saying up all the way up from Phil Jackson all the way down the line. It got real where thought there's a very good possibility they could have lost to the Pacers.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Everybody was physically and mentally exhausted, and you had this one team. They were hungry, man. And they had the mentality that I like to have when I go into another fighter's hometown and fight them. You want to spoil the party. You know what I mean? You want to
Right,
spoil that
right.
coming. And they knew it was the last year for the Bulls, and they wanted to spoil that. They didn't want them to get to the finals, man. They were hungry, man. They were, what I mean, they were gritty, they're tough. They were a team loaded full of veterans and young talent, man, and they wanted it, man. They really wanted it, and it showed in those games, man. Those guys played about as tough as you can get, as hard as you can. They were fearless. You know what I mean? Like it was just a beautiful thing to relive again, man.
Was having Larry Bird as the head coach someone who played against Michael Jordan and those Bulls? I mean, well, most of those Bulls. I mean, basically MJ. We can stick with MJ on that. Do you think it was an advantage for them to get that far as pushing and testing the Bulls to the limit? Was Larry Bird a big plus on that, Terry?
Well, I remember at the time when Larry Bird first took that job, I wasn't sold on him, man. At the time, former players wasn't really transitioning to the coaching job as well. So
Well,
when
we got
Larry
to say
Bird,
him being from French Lick,
yeah,
Indiana, I
yeah,
think that was a big plus. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
but I kind of wasn't sold on him, man. I didn't think he would turn out to be as good of a coach as he was. And the thing about him playing against Mike back in the day, and still being around him to this day, like Larry had the same mentality Mike had. He always studied his competition and everything, and he had his team really mentally and physically prepared for Michael Jordan himself and the Bulls. But like one thing you can't teach his heart. You know what I mean? The Bulls had a heart. They had that championship experience. They had the greatest player on the planet. You know what I mean? And that was the difference maker. So they Larry Bird had them tough, man. He had them ready. They were physically and mentally ready for the game. But I mean, when you're just at a different level, sometimes it don't matter.
Right. But I guess we could agree that Larry Bird was a factor
Absolutely,
on that. So
absolutely.
pushing with them. Yeah, was the extra help that Indiana needed to do so, get that far, or at least mentally. I mean, they got to the point where they mentally got in the heads of the Bulls. Man, not too many
Yeah,
people were able to do that. You know,
they had them 4 minutes left in the game, thinking they were actually going to lose. Man, it was a 3 point lead. You know what I mean? And it's 3 points. It was a 3 point lead, and there's 4 minutes left in the game, and maybe 7, 8 of the players is thinking if the Pacers score one more time, we're done. You know what I mean?
right,
They had them that backed up against the wall.
right.
So it was like I said, I can't speak enough on how wonderful it was to just relive that, man, because that was probably my second favorite team, and I didn't even live in Indiana at the time, and the Pacers was probably my second favorite team next to the Bulls around that time.
People
Yeah,
normally think about rivalries with the Pacers. I mean, the whole thing with the New York Knicks that went down. You know what I mean? That was
yeah,
a whole nother. That could be a whole
yeah.
nother documentary. I mean, there was a 30 for 30 for that one, I believe.
Uh-huh.
Reggie Miller against all of New York City, I think it was called, or something like that.
Well, the
But
Bulls had
like
a
you
Bulls
said,
had a rivalry. The Bulls had a rival team every single year.
right,
But just
right,
because you were a rival doesn't mean that you actually gave them a run for their money. The
right,
Knicks was a good rivalry, but the Pacers gave the Bulls a run for their money. You saw what they
right.
did in '98. They played them just as well in '97. You know what I mean? So there's a difference between a rival team and a team that give you a run for their money. The Knicks was a great rivalry with the Bulls. They played tough, but they really didn't give them a run for their money like that Pacer team did in '98.
Some of the stats from last night, I can't remember the exact number. Uh, we all know that Michael Jordan eliminated plenty of Hall of Famers. The one he
20,
eliminated the most,
20, 20.
20 Hall of Famers, and the
You know,
one we eliminated the most, we're speaking about New York, we're going to spread the news and some blues for Patrick Ewing. Poor Patrick
oh
Ewing.
man,
You've seen his comments on the ESPN FB page. I'm going to relive this. It's been heartbreaking for some fellas. Utah said the same thing last night. Some Utah fans, they had to relive it all over again. But yeah, he eliminated Patrick Ewing 6 times.
yeah.
Was his most Hall of Famer he
Uh,
eliminated from the
man,
playoffs. So
we spoke for the past 5 weeks talking about how nobody ate when Michael Jordan was around. Nobody ate. You got in today's game, you got multiple players out here with multiple rings on the greatest player right now on his watch.
uh,
And Michael Jordan said it best. He said, "Look, they can say what they want, but they can't win until we quit." And that's
right.
exactly what happened. They didn't win until that team broke up.
And besides also Larry Bird and all of this and that, we're saying, the 2 years that it happened, uh, man, the fans themselves having to play in Indiana. Also, we're getting about having to play in Utah. But how about that lady from Indiana, man? You know what I mean?
Oh,
Getting all crazy.
oh man. You know what?
You know,
I will say they do have some diehard fans here in Indiana. You got to give it to them. The state is pretty much divided. Anywhere Purdue University is the center of the state, so anywhere from Purdue University is up are Bulls fans, and from Purdue University on south are Indiana Pacers fans. So when the Bulls play the Pacers, it's kind of like the state is divided. You know what I mean? So It's great to have these teams so close together and give you the option to cheer for them both. You know what I mean? Like when the Bulls wasn't playing, I was cheering for the Pacers, man. They're my favorite team, man. I like Jalen Rose coming out of college. Travis Bass. Of course, you had Reggie Miller. One of the greatest shooters ever played the game. They had the
For
Davis
sure,
brothers.
for sure.
He can go up and down. They were super solid at every single position, and you don't even see that now these days in today's game. And have a team like that so solid, man, they were super scary. It was super scary back in the day.
I think it was cool, Reggie Miller talking all class on the documentary. I think, especially when you realized where they got to that game where they realized, man, that they went as far as they could good to push the Bulls. They weren't going to beat them. You know what I mean? And on his comments that he had said there, Reggie. But it was also cool, and the same thing happened with Karl Malone and John Stockton, how they would
Yeah,
all meet after the games. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
after each
He,
game, they
me,
would all get
me.
before they would travel off or the second game or whatever it was, staying in the town. They would all see each other in the locker room, hug each other, and then go their separate ways. I thought that was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, they see each other, and they give each other some dap and tell them, hey man, you got us, but we gonna get in your ass next time. Shake it up, or
Right, right.
we meet up on the golf course. I remember a lot of those guys back in the day. They would meet up for dinner, and they would talk shit about the game, man. It's never personal, it's business.
Reggie
They
came
would
up
have
to him
dinner.
and Mike
Yeah.
goes, I know it's good. They looked at each other and said, it's going to get crazy. But then MJ goes, I knew that from the beginning, though. How was it going to be? You know what
Right.
I mean?
I mean,
So,
it was always that mutual respect between those guys back then, man. I mean, I'm sure it's somewhat like that in today's game, but it's just a different breed back then. It's a different mentality, and those guys always had the respect for each other. You know what I mean? And they went at each other's throats on the court, man, and it was all love right after the final buzzer. You know what I
well,
mean?
except with the exception of one person, the same guy who everybody didn't want on the '92 Olympic team. We're talking about you know who, Isaiah Thomas. So,
Did
but
did did you notice? Did you notice all that jocking he was doing on MJ? They had him doing the commentary during those '98 finals, and that's what I try to tell people all the time. Isaiah Thomas was doing that commentary during the finals. He had not a bad thing to say about MJ. He had not a bad thing to say about the Bulls. He didn't have to do it. He chose to do it. You know what I mean? And that's how I try to tell people, don't believe this mess and this hype about Isaiah Thomas about what was going on. He's always been a dick going back to his high school days. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, we have don't believe this. These are just people who just want their name in the spotlight about what's going on with the Bulls. It started with Isaiah Thomas. You see everybody else speaking out on things and stuff now. Isaiah Thomas, you know what I mean? Like he it, he's a fake. He's a phony. That's why Karl Malone
that's
turned down an interview with him.
well, yeah. I was just about to say, yeah. Let's move forward now. We've actually been talking about the 2 years the Bulls have dealt with the Indiana Pacers. Let's go now to the last two finals, Utah Jazz, and you bring about Karl Malone. Tell us about Karl Malone, your opinion on him. Where was John Stockton and Karl Malone kind of the same mentality on and off the court, or were they a little bit different? I mean, they were both all stars, no doubt about it. But what about as far as aggressiveness and wanting to outshine the Chicago Bulls?
Yeah, I think they had the same mentality. They just went about it differently. Stockton has always been, more mellow and laid back. You know what I mean? And Karl Malone was the emotional one. And that's arguably. I tell people all the time. People always talk about greatest duos of all time, and you can say Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, and people try to throw LeBron and D Wade around. But I mean, arguably, Karl Malone and John Stockton is the greatest duo to ever play the game. The camaraderie, chemistry was just off the chain. You know what I mean? You saw it in some of the clips, man. John Stockton made probably some of the greatest passes ever at the point guard position, and it was right to his buddy, the
I mean,
mailman. You know what I mean?
no easy
So they,
task to be the best in
yeah,
the West for
they,
2 years in a row
right.
like that. I mean, you know.
They had the same mentality. It's just they went about it in a different way. Stockton was more mellow and laid back. Karl Malone was probably the more aggressor. They had the same mentality. They had the same goal. You know what I mean? So they were best friends off the court as well. So they were always in tune on the court, off the court. So in my opinion, all BS aside, the greatest duo to ever play the game, as far as like 1-2 punches, in my opinion, is John Stockton and Karl Malone. I
For
mean, you can
sure.
argue everybody else, but I mean, nobody played as well together as those guys did for those number of years. and I'm
Well,
surprised
you
they're
think
not.
about Stockton. He's almost a 20. I mean, he was on there almost 20. I think it was, what, 18, 19 years? Just about 20
Man,
years with the Jazz?
super super solid, lights out shooter, great passer, team player, kept his team involved, made big shots. I mean, he did every single thing you can ask a point guard to do in the NBA. You know what I
Right,
mean? There was
right,
nothing he couldn't do.
absolutely.
He's actually a pretty good rebounder too for a little guy. You know what I mean? He was
Right,
tough.
right.
He never backed down from a challenge. I mean, he guarded Michael Jordan in the finals somewhat. You know what I mean? He was John Stockton is it was a super solid point guard. It's probably top 10 point guard. You throw a lot of these new guys in the top. These rankings with these players nowadays is just a popularity contest. You know what I mean? To not
Well,
have Karl Malone,
right.
in your top this and John Stockton in your top this, it's just become a popularity contest. And if you know the game, that a lot of these lists today will look a lot different than they do now. So I mean, it is what it is.
Um, so we're talking rebounds about John Stockton. Now, you made a post yesterday. I saw it. You
Yeah.
had no idea something that happened. I'll never
Oh
forget it
boy.
because I'm a big pro wrestling fan. I'll never forget it.
Well,
Okay.
here's the thing.
So,
We all knew that he joined because everybody who's anybody watched WCW back in the day. You know what I mean? It was what for the first time you watched Hulk Hogan just turn and become an NWO was probably the most heartbreaking and most gratifying thing to happen in the exact same moment. Like it broke your heart because you're used to the yellow and orange. You know what I mean? And then when he turned black, it was like the greatest thing that ever happened in pro wrestling. And then when Dennis Rodman come along, it was just absolutely great. But what I didn't know was he missed practice in the Bulls game to actually go to Detroit and do it. I thought
so
it was doing it all time.
after game three, you know, we saw the press conference with Phil Jackson, with the press asking him all about it. So Dennis Rodman decides not to be at practice after game three of the finals, flies to, of all places, which, I didn't remember the location, but I thought it was ironic considering he had won a championship with this team and now with the Bulls. Auburn, at the Palace of Auburn Hills, Michigan. So maybe WCW kind of played devil's advocate there and said, hey, man, we're going to get the love from your fans from the past, your current fans. NWO was red hot, okay? It was about a year old, okay? Almost a year old. Dennis Rodman, and you saw Michael Jordan when he came back to practice busting his balls. Oh, Rodzilla's here. Rodzilla's here. Got the name Rodzilla from Hulk Hogan. I mean, is that WCW Monday Night Nitro, who at the
Yeah,
time was beating World Wrestling Federation Monday Night
yeah,
Raw in the
was.
ratings,
It was.
and becomes Rodzilla, dude,
Uh,
and the NWO without even letting anybody know. Obviously, this and that, and as stated, no surprise to anybody. Now, that's a Rodman thing to do, man. You know what I
like
mean?
that was one of those moments where you see Dennis Rodman and he goes like, "There's nothing he can do to be any worse than what he did last time," and then nothing could be more shocking. And then here you go, this happens. Like, geez, I mean, it was
And the
Dennis
best
Rodman, of
thing
course,
too,
at
how
the end of
about
the
at
day.
the end with Hogan, and you got Hulk Hogan, the NWO, and you got all the girls, and then Hogan goes, "This was so worth missing practice, huh, brother?" And
Wait,
they all
and
start laughing.
right before that, he goes, "And I like the way you were tossing Karl Malone around like a rag dog,
Yes,
brother. He's
yes,
rubbing in like he's beating him
yes,
on the court."
absolutely,
Oh man, I,
absolutely.
now that you mention it, I do believe that the WCW planned that. They
They had
probably
to.
do it. They
Auburn Hills,
probably do it.
Michigan, everything.
Man,
Because Carl Malone was brought in. I don't know if you remember, wrestling fans. I believe he was
yeah,
brought in with a pay-per-view where he teamed up with Diamond Dallas Page.
yes, he
I
did.
mean,
Yes, he did.
so he was on a pay-per-view. So it worked out for everybody, I guess, in the end. Rodman could have cared less. I'm pretty sure with the money WCW had, Ted Turner's money, they took care of his fine for him and paid him that big money to be there. So in the end, it was all in Rodman's favor.
I'm
You
sorry.
know,
That was just wonderful. I'm sorry. If back then maybe it was bad, but
well,
wow,
let's
that was
just say
just
you couldn't
wonderful.
pull that off today. You know what I mean? And get away with it like
Oh
back then.
man,
So
That was wonderful. Like Dennis never ceased to amaze us now.
never to this day. So let's move on. Let's talk about it. The world famous, what came known as, well, before I ask you anything about it, would you ever trust pizza from Utah in general, period, being from
I don't
Chicago and
trust
Indiana?
I don't pizza from anywhere outside of Chicago. My wife will tell you. We see pizza and I just stare and look at it. And I'm like,
One thing I learned
I'm not
today,
fucking with it at all.
one thing, well, of all places, Utah, I could see if I go to New York or Boston, something like that, I'll try out their pizza. They got a great East Coast pizza. Obviously, that's always the battle with us Midwesterns and the East Coast. But, man,
Yeah.
Utah, I'd be a little skeptical myself, being 100% Italian, man,
I'm
eating
not
pizza from Utah.
I'm not even sure what is the primary food in Utah.
Well, if I had the answer, I would tell you. I have no idea. But let's
Oh,
talk about it. So the only place is open. I believe they said it was 10:30 at night. MJ was starving. I learned something new. I did learn something new. This I did not know. I don't know if you remember ever reading this. Michael Jordan was so hungry when he got that pizza. Okay, it was the pizzeria. The only thing that was open was the pizzeria. We'll get to the details about the delivery. MJ was so hungry he spat on the pizza so nobody else in the room would eat it. I read
that's
that today, which I had no
that's it.
idea happened at all, but it was a fact. So you heard Michael Jordan's best friend say, I thought it was weird from the beginning. He had a bad feeling about it. 5 people delivering the pizza, everybody trying to get a sneak peek in. I mean, even if I'm not sure what name. I mean, I don't know if they actually gave MJ's name. I don't think it was really discussed. Maybe they figured out who it was for after going there or where they had to go. But obviously, the pizza caused food poisoning, man. I mean, and became the flu game. So let's talk about it. I mean, how would you feel about that? Only place that's open. They realize 5 people show up there. I mean, it's a weird situation.
Well, another rumor was put to rest with that incident because everybody was going around saying that he was hungover, he was drunk somewhere, and that's why it was this, and that. And we knew back in '98 that they put something in his food. There were fans actually at the stadium with signs was talking to. Do you remember that there were fans at the stadium with signs asking them how was the pizza? We
Right.
knew they poisoned his food back in the
Or yeah,
'90s.
I mean,
So I'm
all
glad.
undercooked, probably undercooked or whatever,
Oh
put
man,
spoiled something. Yeah.
they were teasing him with signs, and I swear I'm gonna get online. I'm gonna find it because I remember this. They were teasing him. They put it out there that they poisoned his food. You know what I'm saying? That's what
Well,
was going
he
on with
did
him.
say he was the only one who ate it. And I
Uh
read
huh.
today he spat on it so he'd be the only one who ate it. He was
Yeah.
that hungry. He was
He
that
actually
hungry.
spit on the pizza so nobody else in the room would get some. So he ate the whole pizza to himself.
Uh,
And a couple hours later, he was
But I want
it was coming out the
about
basement and
5. He
had
said by 3:30 in the morning,
yeah.
it was bad. Where he said you got to get the team doctor. You know what
Man,
I
it was
mean? So
he had it coming out the attic and the basement.
yeah, yeah. And then the whole
uh,
story came out. But of course, man, break it down. How I mean, that's God given talent right there. When he performed the flu game, I mean, nothing was going to stop MJ Terry.
I mean, like I said, that goes back to that goat mentality. It goes back to him being a cerebral assassin. You know what I mean? It didn't matter. He figured if he can get out there, if he can do it, that's what he was gonna do. You know, and you got to think about it. And what did he play like 40 some minutes that night too? You know what I'm
46, I
saying?
want to say was, yeah, yeah.
6 minutes out of a 48-minute game with food poisoning, and here we are in 2020 talking about load management with these players. You see what I'm saying? It's a difference between the generation and the generational players, and the mentality is just different. You know,
I
I'm
I don't think there'd be doctors allowing anybody to play. I mean, back then he obviously said he could have said, hey, you shouldn't be playing, but it's up to you. Nowadays, I would think, hey, you can't play at all. I mean, the way it's changed, even from
we
from the
talking
the brass, the doctors,
talking
the
about we
staff.
talking about we talking about the same guy that fought with the team owner about a foot injury 20 years earlier. Remember? They
Right,
wanted to sit him
right.
down. recovered. He said, "Well, shit, if I can get out there and play, I'm gonna go out there and play." And he's like, "Well, no, Mike, you can probably hurt yourself again." So we talking about he had that mentality as a kid. You see what I'm saying? It didn't do nothing but transition years later. You know what I mean? So like I said, we talking about load management now. I've never heard of it, and it's great because he of course he owns the Charlotte Hornets, and they asked him about the whole load management. I'm not sure if you all saw his interview, and he told his entire team. He said, "We I pay y'all to play 48 minutes. We don't do load management around here." And that goes to show you his mentality that he had when he played, and the mentality that he's putting on his players now. Because a lot of guys are sitting out, and I think it's unfair because as a fan, you pay money to go see these games, and you want to see LeBron James, and you want to see Zion Williamson, and now they got load management where they can sit out 2 games and not play just because they're tired. You know what I
Right,
mean? You
right,
got
right.
guys they playing 46 minutes, 44 minutes, 48 minutes. I mean, playing the whole game plus overtime. You know what I mean? And they're not
Let's
making
the,
nowhere near as much money as these guys now.
sticking on this topic. How awesome was Scottie Pippen in that last game with the back problems he had, man? I mean, nothing was going to stop him from doing what he had to do.
Oh, like I said, once again, we had to endure all of these. Scottie Pippen is soft over the years. Like people who wasn't in Chicago. Of course, we didn't know that. We're defending it for years. Like, what do you mean soft? Scottie is soft, and now they get to see that he couldn't even sneeze without his back hurting, and he was out there. He did what he could, and he was actually rebounding, and he had 5 steals that game. People don't even know that he had 5 steals that game. One key steal in the last 2 minutes of that game before Jordan got the final steal in the final minute. Scottie Pippen had 5 steals in that game. You know what I mean? At 8 rebounds, I believe. He didn't score as much, but he still had such an impact in that game just being out there. If he was out there, he was going to try to do something. So I'm glad that they finally got to see that and put the rest, the Scottie Pippen being soft and all of that. You know what I mean? Scottie was as tough as Teflon. He was tough as they come.
They did it the best way possible. I mean, every 5 minutes, going back and forth, just putting the heat
Yeah.
or and the cream on
Mm-hmm.
his back. Whatever they realized, hey, you know what? Let's try to get him ready for the last 10 minutes of the game. I mean, it was a smart thinking by the coaches and the doctors there. They knew he needed some kind of help physically wise, but they did the best they could do in the situation they were in, and it worked off. It worked out. It worked off for them for
They,
sure.
they they dealt with that. You couldn't have dealt with that situation more perfectly. They couldn't have dealt with that situation more perfectly. They realized that they were still in the game. We would need him in clutch time, and they got him ready to come out in clutch time. And he was clutch in clutch time. A great defensive play when they needed it. Big rebound when they needed it. He was out on the floor. As long as he was out on the floor, he was still a threat to Utah to open up things for other players to come in and contribute. You know what I mean? So it goes to show you, that he wasn't soft. He was tough as nails. You know what I mean? And he was just as important as that final game as people gave him credit because they thought he was literally trying to do what he did back in the day against Detroit the year before they finally beat him. He was out in that one game, and everybody thought that he did it on purpose, and they thought he was on that again, and
Well,
he went
let's
out
not
there.
forget about the beginning of the season. You know what
Right.
I mean? I mean, it was, and it obviously had one of the biggest impacts of them winning. I mean, he was dealing with injuries
Exactly.
since the season had started. Not to mention all the drama. You know what I mean? From the front
Yeah.
office situation and this contract.
Exactly. Exactly. But like I said, Scotty, he came out and he proved all the doubters, everybody who had all the negative stuff to say about him, and he came out and he performed and he did his job, and we know what happened. Second three-peat.
Let's talk about now. We're going to get to that point here. Let's talk about could Hollywood made a better? I mean, Hollywood could not even made a better ending, man. With the way Michael Jordan won that game, his last shot as a bull. I mean, were the stars aligned? I mean, it was destiny, Terry. I mean, you can't even make stuff like that up, man. I mean, you know what I'm saying? The way
Well,
the Bulls won.
but if you think about it, Dennis Rodman said it best. He said he gave it to Paxson the first time. He gave it to Kerr the second time. He said this was his last one. He said everybody just got out of the way. They knew he was going to take it. It was his time to shine. It was his time to take that big shot. You know what I mean? And I mean, everybody knew. Scottie Pippen said, "Man, I just wanted to get the hell out of the way." And you saw it in the play. Everybody
Right.
came
He
out.
did say
Got the
that.
ball.
Scotty was great.
Everybody literally ran to the other side of the court and got out of his way. And you saw magic. To this day, I have a poster that's on its way of that final shot. I've never seen that many people in a crowd in a stadium to watch a shot. Y'all, man, that's probably one of the most epic pictures you'll ever see. It was just beautiful to watch. You know, like I said, we was blessed to watch it live. It was blessed to relive it again.
They said he
Wonderful, man.
just drained the energy out of uh, out of that whole stadium in Utah. He just drained it. You know,
That was
just
that was
drained it.
he took their heart. That's what he did. He took the heart of an entire state with one
Pulled
shot.
it out of them and literally showed it in front of their face.
Oh, and took it home with him. Took it
Yeah.
back in the locker room with him.
He didn't
Playing it
even
back
put
in
it back
Chicago.
in. He brought it with him.
Man, brought it home with him, man. You know, cerebral assassin, man. You can I mean, what else can you say about him? But you can sit up and throw stats around all you want. What else can you say about him? He was a killer on the court. He was a killer.
I thought it was incredible. I thought it was really awesome how Phil Jackson at the end of that kept repeating. He went just like kept hugging Michael and looking at him. Did you know? Did you? I mean, they showed it multiple times. Phil kept bringing up that last shot. I mean, it was just like, I mean, it was probably one of the greatest moments of Phil's coaching career. I mean, there's
Yeah.
anything he's ever seen before. I mean, he just kept going on and on to Michael on multiple times about that shot and the ending of that, you know, how they won it.
It was the perfect coaching move too. Like I said, that's the genius of Phil Jackson. He said in the documentary, he said, I knew that we had a chance with Michael Jordan. He's like, I didn't want to give them a chance to set something up and talk about it. No, I got ready to call the timeout and I thought about it. No, let's go on the fly. Let's not call a timeout and give them a chance to set something up. We got the greatest player on the planet. So he let him play on and it worked out, man. You know what I mean? That's a coach's call. That was a wonderful call. He knew. You know what I mean? He knew.
Right. I mean, he
So
kept bringing it up, and you saw the smile all the time. It was something like the way Phil was talking about it was something like he thought he would never see in his life. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, or maybe he knew he was never going to see it again. One of those moments. You know what I mean?
he kept saying that was beautiful. That was beautiful.
You know, he kept telling everybody over and over, and MJ kept telling him there was no doubt. I knew I was gonna. I had to go for it. Like you brought up about what Dennis Rodman said. You know,
And I
passing the
and I
ball,
wish
the ball
people
to
stopped saying he
Paxson and
pushed
Kerr.
off.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
wish people stopped saying he pushed off. He did not push off.
Oh
That
no,
was
that was a
I
whole
mean,
other thing. I mean,
oh
when they
boy,
showed the replay there, it was like you said. What was it? Like telling the waiter or something, thank you, or something like that. I mean,
yeah.
you
You know,
know,
the same people that call that a push off was okay with the bump Reggie Miller did to win the game. They was okay with that. It was
right?
just a little shove. It was just a little shove. Remember they kept saying, "We he pushed off. Oh, it was just a little bump. He didn't really do nothing." They was okay with Reggie Miller hitting that shot. But now because it's Michael Jordan, it's game six, all he pushed off. I mean,
Right,
people
right. No, they
just
showed that
ridiculous.
second replay yesterday, and it was. I think all the skeptics were
It
put to
was a
rest
love
there.
tap. Oh yeah, it was a love tap. He barely touched.
Absolutely,
His whole momentum was going left. There's no way he could have stopped and got it back without blowing out his knee. He was done.
absolutely. So history was made. Oh, and you know what? I wanted to bring up something too. As it was brought up, let's talk about because this gentleman will go on to win one more, be the first player in 50 years at the time to win four in a row. Steve Kerr would go on to play for the San Antonio Spurs the following season, win a fourth title.
Yep.
And I thought it was a class act on ESPN to show the whole situation. Steve Kerr was asked, did they ever talk about each other's dad's deaths, considering the whole horrible act of murder that took both their dads away? Okay, both their fathers were murdered, unfortunately, and it was a true sad situation. Of course, MJ's dad being murdered while pulling over to the road, side of the road at nighttime, wanting to rest, you know, and then the whole controversy about the gambling around that. Uh, and Steve Kerr's dad representing America in Beirut being murdered in 1984 by terrorists.
I had
I
absolutely
had no
no.
idea that happened to
I
Steve
had
Kerr's
I
dad.
had no idea that happened, man. And I mean, it hit me here. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I had a moment where I froze, and I was
And
just like,
Steve
wow.
Kerr being
You
so
know what I mean?
young, too. I mean, before,
Yeah, man.
right when he was supposed
And
to start college.
I was a buddy of mine who's an older gentleman. He told me to Google, and and everybody who watches, I want you guys to Google the same thing. Google how uh, Arizona State taunted Steve Kerr when they played him after what happened with his dad. It was just absolutely horrible. I learned a lot about what happened after that, and it absolutely devastated me. It pissed me off, man. Like they were taunting him in college about his dad's death after it happened, man. Every time he got ready to shoot free throws, there was a particular game, and Arizona played Arizona
Well,
State. They
yeah,
were
he
taunting him
got
about
the scholarship from Arizona, so our
unbelievable.
fans know, who didn't know. He ended up, that was the only school that gave him, he obviously wanted to go to UCLA, where his
Yeah,
dad taught, and he grew up watching the Bruins play basketball. Ended up at the only school giving him a scholarship without even doing a tour. He didn't even go to see the school. He just took it from Arizona. And then,
probably
yeah, unfortunately,
the same thing.
Arizona State brought it to that disgusting level of
Yeah,
taunting about a
it, was-
tragedy. Yeah.
it was unbelievable. I'm an alumni of that place. You know what I mean? And I had a brief moment where I was disgusted to say that that I went there. Unbelievable. I had no idea that it happened. You know what I mean? It was classless, man. It was low rent. It just my heart went out to him, man. I just didn't know, man, and it made you have so much respect for him afterwards. How he channeled all of that, that what happened to him and channeled it into his game. You know what I mean? And he persevered and he became successful, great, really good player, even great
It, it,
coach.
it,
You know what I
it
mean?
got
He had so
emotional
much
there
love for him Yeah,
when he was saying during the finals and they were playing the national anthem. He goes, "My dad would have loved this."
yeah.
You
We
know.
would love to see what his son, how his son made it, and he's successful at the game that he loved. It was touching to see, man. It was touching to see.
Two awesome athletes overcoming the same in different ways, but same death situation of their dads being
Right.
murdered. And you know what? Taking that, they both took that negative into a positive. It made them stronger. So and they know their dads were watching down on them during that whole time. So
Absolutely.
from there, I mean, we all know the Bulls repeated a three-peat. Um, we're gonna have to talk about everybody's so-called, should we say, favorite as hating general manager, or Jerry Krause. Jerry was interviewed right after, didn't want to talk about it, wanted to celebrate that night, wanted to talk about the whole future the next day. I thought it was a class act considering that whole situation that they had uh, at the rally at Grand Park. Phil Jackson saying thank you to Jerry Krause for allowing them to have that one season left. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, did you think Jerry Krause appreciated that at all? That comment from Phil
Uh,
Jackson, or he really didn't care?
maybe he didn't. Phil has always been a class act. He's about as classy as they come. So you kind of like expected that from Phil. He's always been the calm, the mediator. But who
Of
knows,
course,
Jerry?
Phil was trying to be nice about Krause, but Chicago wouldn't have it. They were booing every time he was
Yeah.
mentioned. You
Every
know.
time they mentioned his name, they booed. I mean, I was booing at the TV. I remember that. We had no love for him. And like I said,
Not that we're trying to talk anything bad current, he's dead, but I mean, we're talking about the past, about Jerry Krause and the
right.
situation,
We're
obviously.
talk about Jerry Krause at that time. We're not talking
Right,
about rest in
right.
peace, but let's just call a spade. We know what he was back then. We know what he did. You know what I mean?
Well,
He he tarnished his name and his legacy with his actions. You know what I'm saying? So us talking about it is not defaming his name. He gave himself that own reputation, but he embraced it too. He loved it.
a lot of answers were given to questions people have been asking for years at the end of this. Let's talk about how, and we're going to talk about the class of Phil Jackson, like you said. I don't remember this ever being told in the press. It came out yesterday. admitted by Phil Jackson that it was true. Jerry Reinsdorf calls him and wants to do it all over again, wants to keep him. Now we see Michael Jordan watching the whole situation about the Bulls' answer why we didn't keep going for another championship from Reinsdorf. Michael Jordan said he had never heard an answer from Jerry Reinsdorf up until this point. Phil Jackson's answers came out first. Now, based on the whole history, again, with Jerry Krause and Phil Jackson, said multiple reasons he turned it down was because he felt it ran its course himself. Didn't want to disrespect the plan Jerry Krause had. Didn't want to throw it in Jerry's face like that or make things more uncomfortable with Jerry. He thought that Krause deserved his whole rebuilding plan. Then Michael saw what Reinsdorf had to say. Do you agree that it had run its course, though, on itself? Jerry Krause said, what more did you want him to do? He told Phil Jackson. Phil turned him down. He knew nobody else was going to come back without Phil. Is it put to rest? Do you think it was put to rest? Michael didn't say nothing about it. You kind of seen his facial reactions to it. Do you think they could have done it again? Do you think it ran its course, Terry? Do you think, or can we say the Lakers already got to the era of Phil Jackson? Who knows? What do you think?
In my opinion, they definitely could have won it in '99 if they would have came back. And I say this because
MJ said definitely the same thing, but
no, they would have won it. And here's my reason behind it. Remember, that was the lockout season, and that was only a 50-game season. That would have worked out in such great favors for that Bulls team, only having to play 50 games as opposed to 82. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was all set up for them to win it again in '99. And think about who came out of the East that year. Was it the New York Knicks? That was the Latrell Sprewell Knicks. It wasn't the New York Knicks with Patrick Ewing and Anthony Mason and those guys. That was the Latrell Sprewell Knicks, man. They wasn't beating those Bulls, man. I don't care who you know what I mean, but how much older they were and what the mark, all of that bullshit that they was giving as far as like the reasoning behind it. Nobody was going to beat them in '99, especially in a 50-win, if in a 50-game season where these guys can literally rest their bodies. It would have worked out in their favor. They would have won it in '99. Michael Jordan said it best. There wouldn't have been one player from Judd Bushler on up to Scottie Pippen who wouldn't have signed a one-year deal. Like I said, MJ signed one-year deals from '95 all the way up to '98. He was signing one-year deals every year to come back.
Do you think they would have gone if they were offered without Phil, though, being there? Do you think if they would have signed those contracts? Because Phil,
no.
Before any of that was attempted, Reinsdorf himself called Phil Jackson before anything was attempted to keep any of those players. So
without no Phil, it wouldn't have been no team.
So
Phil Jackson
do you feel it's been laid to rest? The reason Reinsdorf's words, it diffused itself without Phil wanting to come back. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, it's true. You know what I mean? And then, like I said, the damage is already done.
They brought up the whole thing about what they said at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
So maybe there was still a bitter taste in Phil's mouth. You know what I mean? About all of that?
Everybody got feelings just because people handle things differently. You can't sit up here and tell me if a guy tells Terry House, I don't care if your team go 82-0 the season, you're still not coming back. I'm gonna take that some kind of way. I might not show it in the public, but behind the scenes, you asshole. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like,
I agree with you on these things. I think they could have won in '99, one more. After that, I don't think they would have done it anyway, office-wise. I don't think they would have wanted to try it for one more after '99. But I think '99 for sure, they could have. I agree with Jordan. I agree with you, Terry, there. Do I accept the answer? Those are the facts, though. As much as we would love to seen it, and I agree with you, nobody would have came back without Phil, because MJ said it a couple of years before that. So I think it did diffuse itself. I have to agree with you there. And even though Michael never said it, nobody asked him though. Would he have?
Well, like I said
I
the
wish
other,
they would have asked Michael that question, because there was the whole situation is what I wanted to say. Though let's not forget about MJ with the cigar cutter slicing his hand too. I mean, but
yeah,
nobody asked Michael about if they would have came back if Phil wasn't there. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. I mean, like I said, it starts with the coach. The players are only as good as the leader. Phil Jackson was the general of the army. If you can't get the general to come back and lead the troops, everything is dead on arrival. I mean, that's why they asked Phil first. Michael Jordan was the greatest player on the planet at the time. You know what I mean? But at the same time, without no Phil Jackson, it would have been Phil Jackson was responsible for the team. You know what I mean? Who else would have been able to deal with Dennis Rodman other than Phil Jackson at that time?
Right,
You know what I
right.
mean?
Especially
So
the way
I
he
mean,
met him too. He told him to stand up, get off of Reinsdorf's couch, shake my hand, and
shake
this
my
and that,
hand.
and
Let's go outside and talk. Right. He sit down on the couch. He look him in the eye. Said, "Dennis, get up. Look me in the face and shake my hand." And what did he do? He got up, looked him in the face, shook his hand. You know what I mean? Let's go outside and talk.
and they worked it
Nobody,
all out. Absolutely.
worked it all out. You know what I mean? So, and even with his antics during his tenure here, you know what I mean? I don't think anybody else other than Phil Jackson would have been able to handle the shit that he was doing during the season. You know what I mean? Allowing him to take a 48-hour vacation, it turned into like 140 some hours. You know what I mean? And going to get him like any other team would have probably traded him immediately, or or whatever was going on. And so you needed that master, you needed the Zen master to bring those guys back together. It would not have worked without Phil Jackson.
I agree with you as well. So I think I think the majority of Bulls fans could agree it
Yeah.
diffused itself without Phil wanting to come back. So we'll
Mm-hmm.
leave it at that. Of course, we'll all agree Jerry Krause stirred up a lot of drama that could have been stayed behind the scenes or couldn't have been done at all. I mean, you know what I mean? Without doing it
Exactly.
properly,
Uh,
professionally, a lot of vendettas there, a lot of grudges. Um, Even Phil Jackson said about Jerry Krause in the beginning in episode 1, they got to the point where the relationship couldn't have been reconciled. But you're talking about Phil
mhm.
Jackson still thanking Jerry at the rally for letting them do the last season together, and also having the respect to not want to come back because those weren't his plans for the future of the
Yeah.
Bulls. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So
We sit up and we talk shit about Jerry Krause, but at the same time, you have to understand we had Michael Jordan, but that's all we had when Jerry Krause was here. Jerry
right,
Krause drafted Scottie Pippen. He drafted Horace Grant. You know what I mean? He had the balls to trade Charles Oakley for Bill Cartwright. You know what I mean? He made that
right.
move. You know what I mean?
And then to make him an
He
assistant manager too. I mean,
exactly.
assistant coach.
You know what I mean? So I mean, Jerry Krause was a mastermind when it came to building
And he
teams.
did he did
He
upgrade
was,
Phil
yeah,
Jackson too, the head
yeah,
coach. I mean,
yeah. I mean, he up there. He knew the triangle offense was going to be something special. You know what I'm saying? So he took Phil
kept
Jackson.
text around. He kept
He,
text
he put it.
around.
He kept Tex around. He put Phil Jackson with Tex Winters while Doug Collins was the coach, and
Right,
told him get with this guy. He got a
right,
system. It's the shit. Learn it. It's going to be when you become coach. This is what we're going to do. And it's these little details that Jerry Krause was responsible for, which is the reason why we have this dynasty of a team. We have two different dynasties. We have the 91 and 93 dynasty, and
right.
then we have the
Absolutely.
96 and 98 dynasty. You know what I mean? And Jerry Krause was behind two different dynasties with the
Right,
same franchise.
right,
That's unheard of, man. It's
right.
unheard of.
And it's never happened again. So based on all of that, we're talking about a franchise where in the first dynasty overcame the Detroit Pistons, overcame Magic Johnson, and Larry Bird for Michael Jordan for that matter. Okay. Charles overcame Charles Barkley. Um, you know, we came back to the second dynasty, overcame all the drama and talk about that, disbanding the team from the front office. Let's talk about that last, man. You got everything from the two repeats of the three peats, okay? You've got the flu game situation. You got another rivalry with the Pacers, and you got what became known as the Last Dance. Will we ever see another situation like this? It's been so many years and nothing's come close to it in basketball or any other sport. There, are we ever going to see it again?
I don't think so. And I'm really trying not to be biased, but we've had some really, really, really good teams over the years. You know what I mean? But they just haven't been as special as that Bulls team. You know what I mean? There's
I got
nothing
to tell you
stand
the
out of
truth. I
nothing,
got to tell you
nothing
the
stand
truth.
out about it.
The first thing I thought about when they showed, so at the end, what happened to each person. Scottie Pippen got traded. Michael Jordan went back into retirement. Uh, and so and so. And then
Yeah,
at the end was, and the Bulls began their rebuild. I felt like
that was
saying,
horrible.
I, I
Oh,
felt like
I need.
saying they should have put, and it's been 22 years and they're still rebuilding on there.
Oh,
You know what
when
I
I
mean?
tell you, when I saw that, I can only think of Tim Floyd and Elton Brand being traded after 1 year, and Marcus Fizer being our starting power forward, and I just started just playing some of the most awful shit. You know what I'm saying? And then we
Well,
went through. We
Derrick
went through.
Rose had brought a lot of hope to the city, but I mean, we all know how that ended up, man, too. Don't forget, Krause
Derrick
was
Rose,
GM till '03, correct? He
yeah,
stayed as GM till '03. So,
Derrick Rose made Chicago basketball relevant again. You know what I mean? So we have to
Krause
give
didn't
Derrick Rose.
draft Rose, though. He did not
Yeah,
draft Rose. But,
Krause
I mean, as
was
far as the
gone.
whole rebuilding for Krause,
Yeah,
nothing
yeah,
happened with him
yeah.
after that.
I mean, and if you think about, Krause had a nice little team and then dismantled it. Man, you got to think about he had Jamal Crawford, he had Elton Brand, he had Ron Artest, he had yeah, Meta World. What's the fool's name now? He changed it again, but we'll just call him Ron Artest. And he had those guys, and he traded them off for these for those Pacers. Remember, he traded all those guys and sent them to Indiana and brought us back Jalen Rose, who was out of his prime at the time, and gave us Travis Best, who was as old as I am at that time. You know what I mean? And it was just unbelievable. Like, I don't think he was interested in rebuilding the Bulls team to get back to, like glory, or get back to competing, because he had the tools at the time to get a quick turnaround. He drafted Elton Brand. He was promising. He popped them off. Boom. Then you had all these guys, and you let him go, and it was just like, why would you let Jamal Crawford go? And so, like, it's weird to try to get into the mind of Jerry Krause, man. He was a fucking weirdo, man. Tyson Chandler, Eddie Curry, like, yeah, it's like
Right.
Jerry Krause, Brand wasn't baked,
I,
man.
I
It was
just
hard
want
to
to say
get
I
him.
could understand because he was there from, so you're talking 98 to '03, 5 whole seasons, 5, 6 seasons, and there was nothing for the rebuild. I mean, there was nothing there. I mean, like we're just discussing. But one thing I can tell you, it brought us all back, man. I don't think there will be another legacy dynasty or for that matter, moments in sports like we saw in this documentary. I mean, it brought us all back to our childhood and in our late teen years, you know, early 20 years. I really, I pictured what my mom was saying during those games. I pictured where I was. We all pictured talking about it with our friends. I mean, it's never going to happen again. I mean, and we were truly blessed with all of this, especially not only the whole world, because that's what happened with not just the NBA, but it was the Bulls who brought the NBA to the forefront, what it is today,
Yeah,
that time, that particular time. And I think it was the icing on the cake, us being extra blessed with it being from Chicago, you know?
like I said,
So,
I always say that the Bulls was that Bulls team was the greatest sports team in history. We're not talking basketball team in history, sports team in history. There's not another football team that can compare to the team, baseball team that can compare to the team. You have to also understand that at the time the NBA was probably no, not even Tom Brady. You know what I mean? We have to understand that at that time, the NBA was only in about maybe 50 or 60 countries, and after Michael Jordan, it's in 270 some countries. You know what I
right.
mean?
Because
What other
I got to
sport?
agree with
What,
you. Not even Tom Brady, because Tom Brady's not celebrated to this day like
but
Michael Jordan celebrated all these years
Tom
later.
Brady is a part of one of the greatest football teams ever. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
The New England Patriots, that dynasty is one of the greatest football dynasties ever. You know what I mean? But it's not one of the greatest teams in sports.
I
There's
would
a
go with you on
difference.
that.
You know
I
what I
would
mean?
go with
It's
you
not
on
one of
that
the
for
greatest
sure.
teams in sports. Like I said, those Chicago Bulls teams is just one of the greatest teams ever assembled. Period.
In
You know what I
anything,
mean?
in life,
Anything
in
you
life.
can think of, any to think of. We got to remember the other documentary that we got coming out. You know what I'm saying, with Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa.
Right,
You know
right.
that incredible season that we was having with baseball. The Bulls was still running numbers on that. That was
Absolutely,
second. That was second to
absolutely,
the Bulls. And Mark McGuire
absolutely.
and Sammy Sosa was knocking balls 3 and 4 miles out of the stadium. You know what I'm saying,
Absolutely.
back to back to back, and nobody really cared until after the Bulls went off.
Right, right,
You know
right.
what I'm saying? So like,
Um,
it is what it is.
so
Greatest ever.
we never. I agree. We never saw something like that till that point, and we will never again. So, for those all of you wondering,
If I may, real quick, the only reason we won't is because the game has evolved and it has changed, and there's a lot of individuality in today's sports now. What you see with that Bulls team is camaraderie, how they came together as a family, how tough love,
well,
you
now
know what
the
I'm saying,
free agency and no
loyalty,
loyalty, right? Absolutely.
exactly, loyalty to each other, loyalty to the franchise. Like I said, guys just want to get paid and be the man.
What's
Guys is
that
okay
last?
with
What's
guys.
that last thing they showed, Terry, of MJ saying he wanted to bring the Bulls, no matter what it was going to take, to a Philadelphia 76ers, Boston Celtics, LA Lakers level? That was the last interview they showed of him before they went off. You know what I mean?
A young 21-year-old cat say, "Man, I want to make Chicago relevant. I want to make Chicago relevant, like Boston, like Philadelphia, like LA. That's my goal." And that's what he did. And if you watch his tenure throughout the years, he kept saying, "Man, I told y'all I want to bring y'all a championship. I want to bring y'all another one. I just brought y'all another one. I want to bring y'all a third. I want to
And
continue to be
then
great." He
saying
stayed loyal to the team.
he'll always love. Yeah, he did, and then of course Kyle flushed it down the toilet. I mean, or attempted to, but I
He
mean, and
did.
don't forget, MJ to this day said his heart, soul, love will always be in Chicago to that extent.
He's still in Chicago right now. We all know that. A
We
lot
got
of
it.
those
We got his restaurant still off the charts, man. People still eating at his restaurants.
a lot of those guys are still around in Chicago, man. I'm frequently at the Bulls games, and I'm sitting right here, and there's Horace Grant and Tony Kukoc. You get to talk to these guys. He's sitting on the court side, man. They all still here. You get to talk to Kendall Gill behind the scenes. You know what I'm saying? A lot of these Chicago, they just love Chicago. They're Chicago at heart. Even after they quit playing, they're still here. You see Randy Brown, Chicago became their heart, became the pride and joy of them. They're still around. You see them every day, you know what I'm saying, around the city. They're great. They sit and they talk to you. They take pictures with you. And they talk to you about real life, man. And that just goes to show you, man, you can't even get these new cats to scream Taco Tuesday on video. You catch them on your you know what I mean?
I
I
gotta
know I
tell you, I gotta agree with all of it. The greatest
shot at
coach,
them,
the
but
greatest players, the greatest dynasty was
exactly.
the Chicago Bulls and the Last Dance. And you know what else was great? Working with you, Terry House. It was beyond great and my pleasure.
These 5 weeks have been great, man. We watched my hair grow out. I got a little mini afro right now. Every
That's
week
it,
it grew
man.
out a little bit. Hopefully the barbershops will open up and I can go get a haircut now. We watched my hair grow. You know what I mean? It was
That's
a
it,
great.
man. And I've been getting the lights been shining more and more. I've been blessed. I can just shave my head at home. You know what I
This
mean?
is
But it's been,
this
you
is
know what?
absolute
We're
fun.
living all of this, Terry, and I said it before. I'm going to say it again. I've told plenty of people, the Bulls could use you today, man, in that front office, brother. You know what I mean?
Oh man,
I hope
it's
Jerry
been.
Reinsdorf is watching. They
Oh
need you.
boy.
They need
Oh
you
man. This
today. They
this
need
was
you
just
today
great, man.
in the front
This,
office, brother, for sure.
oh man. This was wonderful. This was great. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, the gyms open back up on March 24th, so we'll be able to get back to mixed martial arts. Is what we are
Terry,
experts.
a quick
Oh man.
question. Any idea who the new VP of the Bulls is going to be?
No, we don't know what's going on yet. I like AK. You know what I mean? He brought in. He's making some great moves right now. You know what I mean? And we're just gonna sit back and let him do his thing. He has total control. which is what we was afraid of when when they brought him in, because everybody they bring in has always been known to be a puppet and do what they was told. So they brought AK in, and he has full total control, and I'm confident in him, man. If you go back and look at his resume, look what he did in OKC, where he was just recently was. All the success that OKC recently had, and all the success that most recent Denver Nuggets had, that success with those two franchises,
So
that
that's
is
where
all
he's coming from. That's his history there.
that is all AK. That is all AK. This is the same AK that swapped point guards with Chris Paul and Russell Westbrook, and everybody thought that, oh, Russell Westbrook is going to Houston, this is going to happen, and then you got Chris Paul playing with all these young guys, and they got a better record than Houston. You know what I'm saying? Houston too
Right.
went to the conference finals, and it's
Right.
because he's a genius, man. All you have to do is go back and look at OKC's most recent success and those Denver Nugget teams. You know what I'm saying? The Denver Nuggets and the OKC. If you like the moves that they made and how they came up, you got to think about it. Denver was the number 2 team in the Western Conference last year. I mean, 2 years ago.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
That's AK. That's all his moves. He has total control. You know what I mean? And uh, uh um, and they got
He drafted those
absolutely.
guys.
Absolutely. He drafted Kevin Durant. He drafted Russell Westbrook. He drafted James Harden. You know what I mean? He brought in Steven Adams. You know what I mean? And when shit dismantled, he regrouped. One thing he don't do, he don't rebuild. He reloads. You know what I mean? And he already spoke on the talent that he have in Chicago with Laurie Markkinen and Zach LaVine and Kobe White. And he goes, "We're ready. We're just a couple of moves away from competing in the East again. So look for what he's gonna do. I'm predicting the Bulls will have a pretty high draft pick this year, and we got a lot of young talent. I expect for him to package some guys together, trade that high pick, and bring a big name guy in to run with these guys that we have right now. And I'm making that bold prediction right now. And the Bulls will be right back competing in the East, man. They'll be in that top 4, top 5 in the East very, very soon. You heard it from me. You know what I'm saying?
Well, if there's anybody we're going to hear it from that's worth anything, is definitely from you, Terry House. You know that, my main man.
Calling it right now, man. That hire, I was so excited about that hire, man, when they brought him in, because I was already familiar with what he did in Denver. You know what I'm saying? He brought in Jokic, and those are
You
guys.
think they should trade the draft pick, keep it? What do you think they should be doing?
Absolutely, absolutely. Here's the thing. I don't want to waste another season on a prospect. You know what I'm saying? And these drafts are getting weaker and weaker by the year. Everybody's becoming a project. If you think about last year's draft, you got Zion Williamson. You know what I'm saying? And then you have Ja Morant. Everybody else was a project. You see what I'm saying? It was
Right,
only two
right.
surefire guys, and that's what's happening in every single year's draft. It's not like it was back in the day when the first top 15 picks, you got an NBA ready guy. Everybody else is being slept on. You might get a guy who played 4 years in college, who was the last pick in the first round, who's more solid than the guy that was the number 6 pick. So I don't want to waste any more time trying to work on a project. You know what I'm saying? When you already got enough projects, you have a Zach LaVine is a 26 point a game scorer. Laurie Markkinen averaging 20 points a game. You see what I'm saying? Kobe White can flat out shoot it. You know what I mean? You got Chris Dunn. I say you keep Chris Dunn because what he does defensively, it's unbelievable. You know what I'm saying? He's second in the league in steals. You know what I'm saying? He's first in the league in steals per 48 minutes. You know what I mean? And he's a 6'4" dog on the defensive end. So you keep him as a backup point guard. You can get him for cheap. You know what I mean? So you got these guys in place. You know what I'm saying? So what you need to do is you need to bring a veteran. You need to bring in a dog, somebody who's ready to win, to play with those guys. I don't know, man. Maybe you go after Giannis. Maybe you bring in an Anthony Davis. Maybe you go, if you want to go a little bit cheaper, maybe you call New Orleans since they got Zion Williamson and you bring in the Brandon Ingram. Either way it go, one of those three guys is an upgrade with the guys that we have. You know what I'm saying? You can send that draft pick and let somebody else deal with that project, man. You know what I'm saying? You bring in a ready guy to go with these guys, boom, you're competing in the East again.
For
Guaranteed.
sure. For sure. And you know what? The 90s Bulls will always live forever. Um, well, does Giannis even leave Milwaukee? One last
Getting the hell, he's
touch on
getting the
this?
hell out of he's getting the hell out of Milwaukee. I said we make a play for him and try to bring him in a big market in Chicago. Let's throw some money his way. You know what I mean? Let's try to bring him down before he goes to LA because Anthony Davis is leaving. You know what I mean? Anthony Davis is leaving. You heard it here. He sold one of his houses already. His second one is on the market. I don't believe he's staying in L.A. You know what I mean? And if LeBron keeps playing, we all know he can't play by himself. So he's going to need somebody to come there with him. They're going to court the shit out of Giannis because as of right now, it's safe to say that the league belongs to Kawhi Leonard right now. You know what I mean? And
Right.
LeBron is trying to get over. He's trying to get that fourth ring. He's trying to separate himself because Stephen Curry got three. You know what I'm saying? Klay Thompson got three, and we sit up here. We have this GOAT debate with LeBron and Michael Jordan all the time. When it's weird because if you think about it, think about this. We always have this debate about Kevin Durant and Michael Jordan being the GOAT, right? Who's the GOAT? Who's the GOAT? Who's the GOAT? Who's the GOAT? Think about 5, 6 years from now, if Stephen Curry got 5 rings and 6 rings, and he flats out shoot it out, he passes LeBron in points, and he's this or Kevin Durant. Will LeBron even be the GOAT of his own era? You know what I'm saying?
That's a whole nother time for a whole nother
We
story, man. You know what I mean? Yeah, absolutely.
we can't sit up here and put this cat in the debate.
I think that the whole LeBron comparing LeBron to Jordan to me, I'm gonna get right to it. It's ridiculous, man. It's just straight up ridiculous. You know what I mean?
You can go position, and I tell people what separates Michael Jordan and everybody else is the evolution of the sport. We can talk about stats. We can throw stats all around all day long between both players. We can talk about wins. We talk about evolution of the sport. Michael Jordan brought in coming into camp in shape. Cats wasn't coming into camp in shape. They got in shape as the season go along. We
Right.
already saw Michael Jordan at the end of the season. We're going to work tomorrow. We're gonna work through the summer. They didn't
Right.
start doing that
Multiple
until
times they did that, right?
see what I'm saying? They didn't start doing that until Michael Jordan. He revolutionized the game, man. As the game evolved, he evolved with the game. And like I said, it's when you're the greatest of your era, everybody follows your lead. When Michael Jordan, he wanted to win. He wanted to get over to Isaiah Thomas. He wanted to get over to Larry Bird. He wanted to get over to Magic Johnson. So what happens? Patrick Ewing wanted to get over to Michael Jordan. Reggie Miller wanted to get over to Michael Jordan. You know what I mean? Out in the West, Charles Barkley, they wanted to get over these guys. They wanted to get over these guys. They never tried to team up. They followed their leader. And then you look at today's game, the greatest player of this era made it okay to just get three players, three superstars and play together. And the other guys follow suit. LeBron did it. So
Right.
now we need a
Right.
big three. Two different, you see what I'm saying? So
Right.
you follow your leader, whether you believe it or not, you follow your leader. And when you make it okay to just go around and like now, guys, there's no loyalty. Guys will go play 1 year with one team and then take off and go play another year with another team,
Right.
and then
It's
they go
just
have another. Yeah, and then you got Jimmy Butler, bless his heart. He did all this shit talking for these years. I want to win, I want to win, I want to win. And then finally last year, he finally said, I just want to be the man on my team and make $100 million. And now he's in Miami. He got the $150 million contract, and he got this sorry team down in Miami, but he's the leader and he's paid. You know what I mean? So now these
right.
players are lying to themselves about wanting to win and just saying I want to be the man and I want to be paid because that's what it's about these days. And
They
there's no
can't.
loyalty.
Yeah. You know they can't put up all that stuff. So they
Exactly.
better shut up,
But he
man.
can't have
Because you know what?
it.
They're not cashing the checks. Their mouths are writing, man. You know. So
We told the world Jimmy Butler just wasn't it, and they thought we just didn't like him and we wanted him going out of Chicago. You know what I mean? We wanted him going out of Chicago, and he just wasn't it. He goes to Minnesota. He caused the same problem. He goes to Philly. As soon as Philly traded for Tobias Harris, I knew Jimmy Butler was gone. Who do you think they was going to keep? They got two guys playing the same position. You know what I mean? If people follow basketball, they notice Ben Simmons' game didn't go down until Jimmy Butler got there. That offense they was running with Ben Simmons and Noel. What's the big guy's name? Yeah, they was running. People was calling them the next Joel Embiid. People was
yes,
calling them the next Magic and Kareem. You know what I'm saying? Because they was
right,
playing so well together. Then you got Jimmy Butler comes in and he's a ball hog, and they go away from the offense. And then they had the greatest shooter in the NBA at the time, at JJ Redick. You mean to tell me he's not putting up shots? It's an individual game these days. If you don't have a big three, it's just a different game. You know what I mean? Like they
right.
completely scrapped the point guard position. The point, you know what I mean? The point guard position by definition is not in today's game anymore. You know what I mean? So the game has evolved. You got 7 footers shooting 3 pointers. I mean, there's 7-2, 7-3. Everybody's coming out to the 3 point line. The game is just different now. It's entertaining, but it can get boring. You know what I mean? And
Sure, sure.
so you know,
Small
And it's like
shooting guards, like you were saying. Yeah, absolutely. You know,
it's like everybody, everybody want to shoot it from 30 feet out, and like I said, it's
right?
entertaining to
It's
watch.
a different
You know what I mean?
mentality, different era, different everything. But
Yeah.
I think that in their primes, any of these Bulls championship teams will give any of these teams today a great run for their money, man. You know, if not play better than them.
Any
You know,
any of them teams and any of them teams in the '90s, man. You put that '98 Pacers team in today's era in their prime,
right,
nobody's touching them.
right.
Nobody's touching. You know what I
And
mean?
don't even get me started. They'd be crying all the way home if they had to play the bad boys, man. You know what I mean? From
Think
Detroit.
about it. And they made it perfectly clear. And like I said, you want to sit up and you may say LeBron can play in his era, can play in that era. Like they literally said the referees didn't give a fuck about you getting clotheslined out
Right,
the air.
right,
They just looked
right.
at you. And as much as he flops and looks at the refs like this, you mean to tell me if they clothesline him out the air, he's gonna get up and run back down and keep playing? No, it's not. It's not gonna happen. The referees, Jordan will get fouled and get his head clearly turned around all the way sideways, and he get up and keep running. Referee just be standing there looking up and down the court.
Right,
They don't.
right, right.
I mean,
Wondering what they're gonna
like
have for dinner when they go home. You know,
it's
that
unbelievable,
night
man. Like
after the
the
game.
times is different. There's a lot tougher. It's a finesse game now. It's 3 pointers and dunks. You know what I mean? And it's like I said, it's entertaining.
Right.
But like I said, it's just it's there's no loyalty in today's game. Everybody want to get paid. And I understand. It is what it is. You know what I mean? But like I said, it's a beauty watching those teams. And then one more thing, if I can quickly say,
Yes, sir.
everybody want to everybody want to talk about how Michael Jordan didn't play anybody back in the day. And it's weird that I see all of these things on social media was like, oh, this guy was great, Sean Kemp. Oh, this guy was great, Dominique Wilkins. They're showing highlights of everybody. Oh, this guy was a beast. It's Karl Malone. Oh, this guy was cold. It's Patrick Ewing. Oh, this guy was this. Oh, you see Kevin Johnson and popped up and all of this. And do they realize none of these guys won championships because of one man? So now you can't have it both ways. You can't say Michael Jordan didn't play no competition back in the day
Man, you
and then sit up
said everybody that tried overcoming him staying on the same team.
and you can't sit up here and say that all of these great players played back in the day and these wonderful teams and
He
everything.
stopped
And
them
then
all. He
in
stopped
the
them
same
all.
breath say Michael Jordan never played anybody.
20
You know
Hall
what
of Famers stopped. We brought that up
I'm saying?
before, and,
Like
and, and,
that,
and the rest was history.
Michael Jordan beat 47 50-win teams in his career in the playoffs.
That's
You
it.
know what I'm
That's
saying?
it.
Come on, man. That's unbelievable. 47 50-win teams. I mean, I could throw stats out that people will have to Google just to see that it's true because I know what I'm talking about. The stuff that he
Absolutely.
did, you can talk about points per game and rebounds and you know what I'm saying? Like the only other player to win MVP scoring title and defensive player of the year the same year is Shaquille O'Neal. It's not LeBron James. It's
Well,
not
don't
D
forget
Wade.
in that final game, he had what 47 points, and the rest of the Bulls had
Oh,
45, or it
oh
might have been
man,
vice versa, 45 and 47. But
you,
I mean, he had
you
just
have
as
to
much as the rest
understand.
of the team combined when they won their last championship.
You
You
have
know,
to understand. Like you can throw numbers out there, and there's great guys got great numbers, but some of the shit that he did was just unprecedented. You know what I'm
right?
saying?
I will never
If,
see it again. That's a
you know,
fact, man.
you can't see it because it's every man for himself on the court
Right,
now.
right, right,
You you can't do this every man for himself on the court now. And if this guy gets shining too much, they want out now.
right. Well,
They
Terry,
want out now.
you know, as much as like we said, the Bulls dynasty will always live forever, not in just basketball, but in the world of sports and in life itself.
Absolutely,
And now,
absolutely.
as much as we obviously are all hoping for every sport to come back, let's hope when it does happen, the Bulls, like you said, have the opportunity to make some new championship memories
Oh,
for
man,
the city
we're
of Chicago.
coming. We're
So
coming. We're coming. You heard, mark my words. We're coming back to glory.
we want to thank all our fans through all of this. For all of those you interested, ESPN Wednesday will show the unedited version with the documentary of the final game in Utah on ESPN Wednesday night. So check that out. For everybody, Nilo and all the guys at the studio, all our fans through all of this documentary, Terry, I wouldn't want to do this with anybody else but you, man, when it comes to Bulls basketball. Thank you
This
so
was
much,
wonderful.
Terry House. Terry is also
Thank
a
you very
13-year MMA veteran, one of the best to ever step in the cage. For
Thank you.
Terry,
Thank you.
Fight
Thank
Card,
you.
everybody, we love you guys. And
Trying to
remember,
get back, baby. That's
time
where
to
I'm from.
get
It's
back
almost.
at it. I've been Joe Rossi. Thank you so much on behalf of Fight Card Entertainment MMA, all our fans. We hope you enjoyed this. Have a wonderful night and rest of your week. And thank you so much.
Frontline
Ciao, ciao
workers,
for now, guys.
frontline workers, thank you for everything you do. Better days are coming. Getting better.
God bless.
God bless you all.